The bank manager's face went completely pale. His hands trembled as he grabbed for the telephone. "Lock the front entrance," he told his assistant, voice tight, "and call the police right now." He stared at me like I'd just handed him a live explosive instead of my deceased grandfather's old savings book, the same book my mother threw in the garbage yesterday, called it worthless trash that should have stayed buried with him. She was absolutely certain it meant nothing. Turns out, some secrets refuse to stay underground, and some of them have teeth. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Natalie Walker, 32 years old. Until that morning, I thought the most dramatic part of my week would be arguing with my landlord about the broken heating in my studio apartment. I work as a legal assistant at a small firm in Cincinnati. Not glamorous work. The salary is modest. My vehicle is 14 years old, makes a sound like a dying animal every time I accelerate, but I'm skilled at my job because I notice details. I ask questions. I don't let go until I find answers. My family has always considered this a personality defect. The funeral was on a Thursday. My grandfather, Harold Walker, had passed at 87 years old. He lived on a quiet farm about 3 hours outside the city, the kind of property with a wraparound porch, fields stretching towards the horizon. Everyone assumed he had nothing, just an elderly man in an elderly house, living out his final years in simple peace. That's definitely what my mother wanted people to believe. The service was brief, efficient, cold, exactly Patricia's style. My mother has always believed emotions are a form of weakness. Funerals are no exception. She organized everything like a business meeting. 25 minutes for the ceremony, 40 minutes for the reception, then everyone leaves. No lingering, no unnecessary displays of grief. The catering came from a place that apparently believed mayonnaise qualified as a vegetable. My grandmother would have climbed from her grave just to criticize the coleslaw. She had standards. Patricia does not. My brother Ryan arrived 45 minutes late, wearing a suit that cost more than my rent. Said parking was challenging. The farmhouse has a gravel driveway the size of a parking lot, but sure, Ryan, parking. He barely appeared affected. Then again, Ryan has never been particularly skilled at emotions that don't directly benefit him. He embraced our mother, shook some hands, spent most of the reception checking his smartphone, probably monitoring his stock portfolio. Ryan loves discussing his investments. I stood in the corner, watching my family perform mourning like theater, and I thought about my grandfather. Harold Walker was an accountant for 38 years. Numbers were his native language. He could examine a balance sheet and see stories others missed. He was also a chess enthusiast, a talented one. He taught me to play when I was 8, sitting on that wraparound porch, board between us, lemonade sweating in the summer humidity. He used to say chess wasn't about the pieces you captured. It was about the positions you created, the traps you constructed, the patience to wait for your opponent's mistake. His favorite phrase was this: "Truth is patient. It can outlast any lie." I never understood what he meant. Not until now. 3 weeks before his death, I visited him at the farmhouse. He was frail, his body failing, but his eyes were sharp, focused, alive. He grabbed my hand with surprising strength, pulled me close, his voice barely a whisper, but every word deliberate. "The savings book," he said, "in my office. The chess manual. Only you, Natalie. Promise me." I promised. Didn't understand, but I promised. After the funeral service, the family gathered at the farmhouse. Patricia was already walking through rooms, discussing selling the property, mentioning potential buyers, calculating square footage, like the body wasn't even cold yet. Ryan nodded along, occasionally offering suggestions. They'd clearly planned this beforehand, probably while Grandpa was still breathing. I slipped away to his office, small room lined with bookshelves, smelling of old paper and pipe tobacco. Grandpa hadn't smoked in 15 years, but the scent lingered. I found the chess manual immediately. Strategic Endgame, a master's guide. His favorite. We'd analyzed the positions in that book countless times. I pulled it from the shelf. It felt wrong. too heavy. I opened it. My heart stopped. The pages had been hollowed out. Inside was an old leather savings book, worn at the edges, the kind you might discover in an antique shop. It looked ancient, like something from another era. I brought it to the living room, curious, wanting to share this discovery with my family. That was my mistake. Patricia saw it before I could speak. Her reaction was immediate, too fast, too sharp. She crossed the room in 3 strides, snatched it from my hands, barely glanced at it, then threw it directly into the kitchen trash can. This is garbage. Old accounts that don't even exist anymore. This should have stayed buried with him. Don't go digging through his belongings, Natalie. It's inappropriate. Ryan laughed from the sofa. Always the sentimental one, Nat, aren't you? They exchanged a glance. Brief, almost invisible, but I saw it. I've spent 9 years working at a law office. I've seen that look before. It's the look people share when they have a secret, when they're afraid someone's getting too close to something hidden. And that look, that split-second exchange between my mother and brother, told me everything I needed to know. The savings book wasn't worthless, it was dangerous, and whatever secrets it contained were about to destroy my entire family. That night, I couldn't sleep, kept thinking about my mother's reaction. If the savings book was worthless, why was she angry? Why not just dismissive? Why did she need to throw it away so quickly, so decisively? And I kept thinking about my grandfather, his sharp eyes, his deliberate words. He was an accountant for 38 years, tracking numbers, finding patterns, identifying discrepancies. He wouldn't hide a random, worthless document. Not like that. Not with such specific instructions. At 4:30 in the morning, I made a decision. I was going back to that farmhouse. That savings book was still in the trash, and I was going to discover why my mother wanted it buried so badly. Before we continue, please hit that subscribe button. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I read every single one. Your support means everything. Thank you. The drive to the farmhouse took 3 hours. In the gray pre-dawn light, I kept the radio silent, needed to think. My grandfather was many things: patient, methodical, strategic. He spent 38 years as an accountant, tracking numbers, finding patterns, identifying discrepancies. He wouldn't hide a random, worthless document. Not like that. Not with such specific instructions. I arrived at the farmhouse just after 7. The key was still under the ceramic frog, where it had been for 20 years. Inside the house was cold, empty, silent in a way that felt wrong. Places where people lived always have ambient sound, creaking floors, settling walls, memories held in the structure. But this felt hollow, like the house knew Harold was gone and had started forgetting him. I went straight to the kitchen. The trash bag was still there. Patricia hadn't bothered taking it out. Why would she? She was already planning to sell everything, let someone else deal with the garbage. I pulled the bag out, set it on the counter, started searching. Coffee grounds, crumpled napkins, a half-eaten sandwich that Ryan probably discarded. And there, at the bottom, the leather savings book. I pulled it out, wiped off some coffee residue. My hands were shaking. The cover was worn smooth, embossed with faded gold lettering. First National Bank of Cincinnati, Est, 1947. I opened it carefully. The first page had my grandfather's name, Harold James Walker. Account opened May 19, 1962, the year he started his accounting career. I flipped through the pages, each entry handwritten, deposits, withdrawals, dates, amounts, all meticulously recorded. But something was strange. The deposits were small, $20 here, $50 there. Consistent but modest, exactly what you'd expect from someone carefully saving, building a nest egg slowly over decades. But the last page, the final entry, made my breath catch. Dated 6 months ago, balance transfer to secure account, final amount $2.1 million. $2.1 million. My grandfather, the man everyone assumed had nothing, had hidden over $2 million, and somehow my mother knew about it, or suspected. That's why she threw the book away. She didn't want me finding this. I sat down at the kitchen table, mind racing. Where did this money come from? Harold was an accountant, not a corporate executive. He lived simply, drove old cars, wore the same jacket for 15 years. How does someone like that accumulate $2 million? Unless he'd been planning this for a very long time. I needed to understand what I was looking at, needed context. I went back to his office, started searching more carefully this time. Desk drawers, filing cabinets, bookshelves, looking for anything that might explain. In the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet, behind folders of old tax returns, I found a manila envelope, thick, heavy, sealed with tape that had yellowed with age, written across the front in Harold's handwriting, for Natalie when she asks the right questions. My chest tightened. He knew I'd come looking, knew I wouldn't let this go. I opened the envelope. Inside were documents, bank statements, legal papers, photocopies of checks, and a letter, addressed to me. I unfolded it with trembling hands. "My dear Natalie," it began, "if you're reading this, then you found the savings book. You didn't listen when they told you to leave it alone. Good. I raised you to ask questions, to dig deeper, to never accept easy answers." I kept reading. "Your mother has been stealing from me for 8 years. She became my power of attorney after your grandmother died, said she wanted to help manage my affairs, make sure I was taken care of." My stomach dropped. At first, it was small amounts, a few hundred here, a few hundred there, things I might not notice. But I'm an accountant, Natalie. I notice everything. I documented every theft, every forged signature, every unauthorized withdrawal. The letter continued for 3 pages, detailed accounting of Patricia's fraud, dates, amounts, methods. She'd been systematically draining his accounts, transferring money to herself, forging his signature on documents, telling him he was confused, that he was forgetting things, gaslighting him into silence. Ryan had helped, provided investment advice that funneled money into accounts they controlled, created complicated financial structures designed to hide the theft. Together, they'd stolen over $800,000, but Harold had been 3 steps ahead. "I couldn't stop them directly," the letter explained. "She had legal authority. She'd convinced my doctor I was experiencing cognitive decline. Every time I tried to fight back, she threatened to have me declared incompetent, to put me in a facility. So he'd done what he knew how to do, hidden money they didn't know existed, old accounts they'd never found, savings bonds from decades ago, life insurance policies that had matured. Everything carefully moved, consolidated, protected, transferred to a secure account at a different bank, under a trust that only I could access. The documents in this envelope are evidence," Harold wrote, "enough to prove what they did, enough to send them to prison if you choose. I'm leaving this decision to you. You're the only one I trust, the only one who ever visited me because you wanted to, not because you expected something." Tears were running down my face now. "By the time you read this, I'll be gone, and your mother will think she's won. She'll think the money disappeared, that I died with nothing. Let her believe that for now. But when you're ready, when you have the strength, use these documents. Get justice. Not for me, I'm at peace, but for the principal, because theft is theft, and family doesn't make it acceptable." The letter was signed, "With all my love, your Grandpa Harold." I sat in that office for an hour, reading through every document, bank statements showing Patricia's unauthorized transfers, forged signatures that didn't quite match Harold's handwriting, emails between Patricia and Ryan discussing how to access more funds, how to keep Harold quiet, how to make sure no one asked questions. It was all here, a complete record, built over years, waiting for someone to find it, waiting for me. My phone buzzed, text from Patricia. "Where are you?
"We're meeting with the realtor at noon. Don't be late." She wanted to sell the farmhouse, divide whatever proceeds remained, move on quickly before anyone looked too closely. I texted back, "I'll be there." I would be there, but not for the reason she expected. Because what my mother didn't know, what she couldn't have possibly anticipated, was that I'd already made copies of every document, contacted a lawyer who specialized in elder fraud, and in exactly 4 hours, her perfect plan was about to collapse into a criminal investigation.
I made copies of everything. Every bank statement, every forged signature, every document in that envelope. I used the scanner in Harold's office, the one he'd bought specifically for record keeping. Even in death, he was helping me. I uploaded everything to a secure cloud storage, emailed copies to myself. Then I called someone I trusted. Michael Torres, attorney at my law firm, specialized in estate fraud and elder abuse. He answered on the second ring. "Natalie, it's 7 in the morning. This better be good." "It's better than good, Michael. It's a federal case." I explained everything. The hidden savings book, the letter from my grandfather, the documented theft spanning 8 years, over $800,000 stolen, $2.1 million hidden and protected. He went quiet for a long moment. "You're telling me your mother committed systematic financial elder abuse against her own father while acting as her power of attorney?" "Yes." "And your brother helped?" "Yes." "And you have documentation?" "Boxes of it. Bank records, forged documents, email evidence, everything." "Don't touch anything else. Don't confront them. Bring me everything you have, today. I'm calling a friend at the FBI White Collar Crimes Division." "FBI?" "This crosses state lines, multiple financial institutions. This is federal fraud, Natalie. Your mother's looking at serious prison time." My hands started shaking again. Not from fear, from something else. The weight of what I was about to do. "Natalie, are you sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back. This will destroy your family." I thought about Harold, sitting in that farmhouse for 8 years, watching his own daughter steal from him, unable to stop her, afraid of being declared incompetent, documenting everything, waiting for someone to care enough to listen. My family destroyed itself, Michael. I'm just finishing what they started. "Good. I'll see you at 10. I arrived back in the city with 20 minutes to spare, walked into Michael's office with a banker's box full of evidence. He had someone with him, a woman in a dark suit, badge clipped to her belt. "Natalie Walker, this is Special Agent Linda Morrison, FBI Financial Crimes Unit." Agent Morrison shook my hand, firm grip, serious eyes. "Mr. Torres briefed me. I need to see everything." We spent 3 hours going through documents. Morrison took notes, asked detailed questions, had me explain the timeline, when I discovered the savings book, when I found Harold's letter, what my mother's reaction had been. "This is textbook financial exploitation of an elderly person," Morrison said finally. "Power of attorney abuse, forgery, wire fraud, potentially tax evasion depending on where the money went." She looked at me directly. "Your testimony will be crucial. You're the one who discovered this. You're the witness who can establish the paper trail. Are you prepared for what comes next?" "What comes next?" "We'll need to interview you formally, record your statement. You'll likely have to testify before a grand jury, possibly at trial. Your mother will hire lawyers. They'll attack your credibility, your motives. They'll say you're trying to steal the inheritance for yourself." "I don't care about the inheritance." "I believe you, but you need to understand, this will get ugly. Family cases always do." "Agent Morrison, my grandfather spent the last 8 years of his life being robbed by his own daughter. He died knowing she'd stolen from him. He hid evidence and prayed someone would find it. I found it. Now I'm asking you to do something about it." She smiled, small but genuine. "Then let's do something about it." The meeting with the realtor never happened because 2 hours before the scheduled appointment, FBI agents showed up at Patricia's house with a warrant to seize financial records, computers, files, anything related to Harold Walker's estate. Patricia called me screaming. "What did you do? What did you tell them?" Her voice was shrill, panicked. I told them the truth, Mom, that you've been stealing from Grandpa for years, that you forged his signature, that you threatened him into silence. You lying little... I have documentation, bank records, his letter explaining everything, your emails with Ryan discussing how to access more money. Silence. Complete. Then her voice changed, went cold, calculated. You don't know what you've done, Natalie. That money was supposed to be for the family, for all of us. He was a bitter old man who didn't understand how finances work anymore. He was an accountant for 38 years. He understood perfectly. He was confused, senile. We were protecting him. You were robbing him. We'll fight this. We have lawyers, better lawyers than some small-time FBI agent and your pathetic little paralegal friend. Then fight it, Mom. See how that works out. I hung up, hands shaking again, but not with doubt, with clarity. Ryan called 10 minutes later. His voice was different than Patricia's, not angry, afraid. Nat, we need to talk. Just you and me. No lawyers, no FBI, please. There's nothing to talk about. I can explain, it's not what it looks like. Mom had control of everything. She made the decisions. I just helped with some investments. You helped steal $800,000. It wasn't stealing. It was family money. He was going to leave it to us anyway. So you decided to take it early, without asking, by forging his signature and lying about his mental capacity. You don't understand the pressure. Mom's always been intense. She had plans for that money, college funds for my kids, her retirement. She said Grandpa didn't need it sitting in accounts doing nothing. It was his money, Ryan, not hers, not yours, his. Please, Nat, don't do this. Think about Mom. She could go to prison, real prison. Is that what you want? I thought about Harold, alone in that farmhouse, watching his daughter steal, unable to stop her, writing letters no one would see until he was dead. What I want doesn't matter anymore. Grandpa wanted justice, so that's what he's getting. You were always self-righteous, always thought you were better than us. I'm not better than you, Ryan. I'm just not a thief. I hung up, blocked both their numbers. Some conversations don't deserve to continue. Agent Morrison moved fast. Within a week, she'd traced the money, $847,000, taken from Harold's accounts over 8 years. Some transferred to Patricia's personal accounts, some funneled through Ryan's investment company, some used to pay for Patricia's house renovations, Ryan's kids' private school tuition, vacations, cars, a comfortable life built on stolen money. Morrison also confirmed Harold's hidden accounts, $2.1 million, held in a trust at a different bank with ironclad legal documentation, naming me as the sole beneficiary, Patricia and Ryan explicitly excluded, with a letter from Harold explaining why. Your grandfather was thorough, Morrison said. He knew exactly what he was doing, built an airtight case, then left it for someone he trusted to execute. He left it for me because I was the only one who visited him for the right reasons. Well, he chose correctly. The prosecutor wants to move forward. We're convening a grand jury next month. I'll need you to testify. I'll be there. The grand jury hearing was scheduled for late September, 6 weeks away. In the meantime, Patricia and Ryan tried everything. Their lawyers filed motions, challenged the evidence, claimed Harold had been incompetent when he wrote the letter, that the documents were fabricated, that I had manipulated a dying old man. Every motion was denied. The evidence was too strong, too detailed, too clearly authentic. Patricia tried to reach me through other family members, aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, all delivering the same message. Family doesn't turn on family. You're destroying your mother over money. Harold would be ashamed of you. I responded to exactly one. My Aunt Susan, Patricia's older sister. She left a voicemail calling me ungrateful. I called her back. Aunt Susan, did you know Mom was stealing from Grandpa? She wasn't stealing, she was managing his affairs. Did you know she forged his signature 37 times? Silence. Did you know she threatened to have him declared incompetent if he complained? Aunt Susan, it's complicated. It's not complicated. It's theft. And if you knew about it, you're complicit. I hung up.
never spoke to her again. Some family ties aren't worth preserving. And what happened in that grand jury room, what I testified to under oath, would set in motion a legal avalanche that wouldn't just destroy my mother and brother's freedom, it would uncover something even darker about how long they'd been planning this.
The grand jury convened on a Tuesday morning, September 23rd, Federal Courthouse downtown. Gray stone building that looked like it was built to intimidate. It worked. Agent Morrison met me outside. "You ready?" I nodded. Wasn't sure if I was ready, but ready didn't matter anymore. This was happening. Inside, the hearing room was smaller than I expected. 23 jurors sitting in tiered rows. A prosecutor I'd met once before, Assistant U.S. Attorney named Catherine Brennan. Sharp, no nonsense. The kind of person who'd memorized every document in the case. No defense attorneys present. That's how grand juries work, just the prosecution presenting evidence, deciding if there's enough to indict. I was sworn in, right hand raised, promising to tell the truth. Brennan started with basic questions: my name, my relationship to Harold Walker, how often I visited him. Then she shifted. "Miss Walker, can you describe your grandfather's mental state in the months before his death?" Sharp, focused. He had physical limitations, but mentally, he was completely present. We played chess, discussed books. He remembered details from conversations months earlier. Did he ever seem confused or disoriented? Never. Not once in all my visits. And you visited frequently. Every other weekend for the past 2 years, sometimes more often. Brennan pulled out a document. Medical records. Your mother, Patricia Walker, submitted paperwork to the court suggesting your grandfather was experiencing cognitive decline, dementia, memory loss. She used this to justify taking power of attorney. Can you reconcile that with what you observed? I can't, because it wasn't true. She lied to gain legal control of his finances. One of the jurors leaned forward, interested. Brennan continued. Let's talk about the day of the funeral. You found a savings book. Can you describe what happened? I walked them through everything, finding the book hidden in the chess manual, bringing it to the living room, Patricia's immediate reaction, her throwing it in the trash, the look she exchanged with Ryan. Why do you think she threw it away? Because she knew what it represented, evidence she couldn't control, questions she didn't want me asking. Did she seem surprised by the savings book? I thought about that. No, she seemed threatened, like she'd been afraid this might surface. Brennan nodded, pulled out more documents. After you retrieved the savings book from the trash, what did you discover? That my grandfather had protected over $2 million, money my mother didn't know about or thought she'd already stolen. And you found other documents. Yes, in his office, a letter addressed to me, bank statements, records of unauthorized transfers, forged signatures, 8 years of systematic theft. Brennan displayed the evidence, passed copies to the jury, let them see Harold's meticulous documentation. One juror audibly gasped at the amounts. Miss Walker, your grandfather wrote that your mother threatened him. Can you explain? I pulled out Harold's letter, read the relevant passage. He wrote, every time I tried to fight back, she threatened to have me declared incompetent, to put me in a facility. She'd convinced my doctor I was declining. I couldn't prove otherwise without risking everything. The room went silent. Heavy silence, the kind that settles when people realize they're witnessing something evil. Why do you think your grandfather chose you? Because I was the only one who visited him without wanting something, the only one who listened, the only one he trusted to finish what he started. Brennan let that land, then shifted again. We need to discuss something else, something we discovered during our investigation. She pulled out a new set of documents. I hadn't seen these before. While tracing your mother's financial activities, we found something interesting. This pattern didn't start 8 years ago. It started much earlier, before your grandfather gave her power of attorney.
My stomach dropped. What do you mean? We found evidence of financial manipulation going back 14 years, small amounts at first, checks written from your grandmother's account before she passed away. My grandmother? Helen Walker, died 12 years ago, Alzheimer's. Your grandmother had a separate account, her inheritance from her parents, about $300,000. After her diagnosis, your mother gained control of that account. Over 2 years, while your grandmother was alive but incapacitated, your mother systematically drained that account, transferred the money to herself, told your grandfather the money was going to care facilities, medical expenses. But it wasn't. No, your grandmother was on Medicare. The care facility was mostly covered. The money went to your mother's personal use, home renovations, a new car, vacations. I felt sick. Your grandfather knew? Brennan continued. We found notes in his files. He'd questioned the expenses. Patricia told him he was mistaken, that he was remembering wrong. Classic gaslighting. But he documented everything, kept records, couldn't prove it at the time, but he knew. So when Grandma died, he realized he was next. He started hiding money immediately, moving assets she didn't know about, building his case, waiting. One of the jurors raised a hand. Can I ask a question? The prosecutor nodded. Why didn't he just cut her off, change his power of attorney, report her? I answered. Because she'd convinced his doctor he was declining. She had medical documentation. If he'd fought back, she'd use that against him, had him declared incompetent, taken everything. He had to be strategic, patient, build undeniable proof. The juror nodded, satisfied, horrified. Brennan presented more evidence, forged signatures analyzed by handwriting experts, bank transfer records, emails between Patricia and Ryan discussing the old man's accounts, how to maximize access, how to keep him compliant. One email from Ryan to Patricia, dated 3 years ago, made my blood run cold. Mom, he's getting suspicious again, asking about the transfers. We need to reinforce the confusion angle. Maybe time to update the medical eval? Patricia's response. Agreed. I'll talk to Dr. Chen. She owes me a favor. We'll get updated documentation of cognitive decline, conspiracy, fraud, elder abuse, all in writing. The grand jury deliberated for 40 minutes, came back with indictments. Patricia Walker, 9 counts of wire fraud, 6 counts of forgery, 3 counts of elder abuse, 1 count of conspiracy to commit fraud. Maximum combined sentence, over 30 years in federal prison. Agent Morrison walked me out of the courthouse. You did good in there. Your testimony was powerful. What happens now? Arrest warrants will be issued, probably tonight. They'll be taken into custody, arraigned tomorrow, bail hearing after that. Will they get bail? Doubtful. Flight risk. Significant financial means. History of deception. Judge will probably remand them. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Buzzed again. Again. Finally, I checked the voicemail. Patricia's voice, shaking, desperate. Natalie, please, we need to talk before this goes any further. I'm your mother. Doesn't that mean anything? We can work this out as a family. Please call me back. Please. I deleted it. Some pleas come too late. Morrison noticed. Your mother? Trying to negotiate, appealing to family loyalty. Will you talk to her? I thought about Harold, sitting in that farmhouse, documenting his daughter's betrayal, unable to stop it, trusting me to finish it. No, I said what I needed to say in that hearing room, under oath. Everything else is just noise. That night, Patricia and Ryan were arrested, taken from their homes, handcuffed, put in federal custody. The local news covered it. Prominent local residents charged with defrauding elderly father, mother and son accused of stealing over $800,000. Financial exploitation case shocks community. My phone exploded. Texts from relatives, friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some supportive, most accusatory. How could you do this to your own mother? You're tearing the family apart. This is about money. You're just greedy. I blocked most of them, responded to exactly 3. Cousins who'd actually spent time with Harold, who'd seen him in those final years, who understood. One of them, my cousin Andrea, sent a simple message. Grandpa would be proud. You did the right thing. That one I saved. The arraignment was the next morning. I attended, sat in the back row, watched my mother and brother, in orange jumpsuits, hands cuffed, standing before a federal judge. Patricia's lawyer argued for bail. My client is a respected member of the community, no prior criminal record, not a flight risk. She'll surrender her passport, wear an ankle monitor, whatever the court requires. The prosecutor stood, Catherine Brennan. Your Honor, the defendant systematically defrauded her own father, a vulnerable elderly man, for nearly a decade. She forged documents, manipulated medical records, conspired with her son to hide assets. She has significant financial resources, international connections through her son's business, and a demonstrated history of deception. She is absolutely a flight risk. The judge didn't hesitate. Bail denied. Both defendants will remain.
The trial began in March, 6 months after the arrests. Federal courthouse. Same gray building, different room. Bigger, more formal. Patricia and Ryan sat at the defense table, wearing business attire now. Their lawyers had coached them well. Look respectable, sympathetic, human. Patricia had lost weight. Jail will do that. Ryan looked older, defeated. The confident investment advisor was gone, replaced by someone who'd realized his entire life was collapsing. I sat behind the prosecution every single day, wanted them to see me, wanted them to know I wasn't backing down. The prosecution called their witnesses, bank employees who'd processed the fraudulent transfers, handwriting experts who analyzed the forged signatures, Harold's doctor, the real one, not the one Patricia had manipulated. Mr. Walker was completely lucid, Dr. Patterson testified. I saw him monthly, ran cognitive tests. He scored perfectly. No signs of dementia, no memory issues. His mind was sharp until the very end. Then how did Mrs. Walker obtain medical documentation claiming otherwise? She used a different physician, Dr. Elizabeth Chen, who happens to be a close personal friend. I later learned Dr. Chen provided an evaluation without conducting proper testing, based solely on Mrs. Walker's description of symptoms. Would you call that ethical? I'd call it fraud. Dr. Chen had already lost her medical license, cooperating witness, trying to reduce her own charges. She testified that Patricia had pressured her, called in favors, convinced her to write the evaluation. She said her father was becoming difficult, that he needed help managing his affairs. She made it sound like I was doing something compassionate. But you didn't examine him. No, I took Patricia's word. That was my mistake. A mistake that facilitated elder abuse. The jury's faces said everything. Disgust, anger. These weren't sympathetic defendants. Agent Morrison testified about the investigation, the paper trail, the hidden accounts, the systematic theft over 14 years, starting with Helen Walker's money, continuing with Harold's. This wasn't impulsive, Morrison said. This was calculated, planned, executed over more than a decade. The defendants knew exactly what they were doing. Then came the emails, projected on screens for the jury to read. Patricia to Ryan. Dad's asking questions again. Time to remind him he's forgetful. Ryan to Patricia. How much can we move this month without triggering alerts? Patricia to Ryan. The old man won't last much longer. Then it's all ours. That last one, written 18 months before Harold died. Several jurors visibly reacted. One woman shook her head, disgusted. The defense tried to fight back. Patricia's lawyer argued she'd believed she was managing the accounts properly, that Harold had been confused, that the emails were taken out of context. My client was trying to help her father, protect him from making poor financial decisions in his declining years. But the prosecution had Harold's letter, read it aloud in court. His words, clear, precise, describing exactly what Patricia had done.
She's been stealing from me for 8 years, forging my signature, threatening me to have me committed if I complained. I documented everything, praying someone would believe me, hoping my granddaughter would find this, would have the courage to seek justice. The courtroom was silent. You could hear people breathing. Then it was my turn to testify. I'd been dreading this, but also waiting for it. Catherine Brennan asked me about Harold, our relationship, the visits, the chess games. Did he ever seem confused to you? Never. He was sharp, thoughtful, strategic. He thought 3 moves ahead in everything, including this case, especially this case. He knew what Patricia was doing, knew he couldn't stop her directly, so he documented, waited, trusted me to finish what he started. Why me? Because I was the only one who visited him without an agenda, the only one who loved him for who he was, not what he had. Patricia's lawyer cross-examined, tried to make me look vengeful, greedy. Isn't it true you stand to inherit over $2 million? Yes. So you benefit financially from your mother's conviction. I inherit regardless. The trust is ironclad. What happens to my mother doesn't change that. But you want to punish her. I want justice for my grandfather. There's a difference. You could have handled this privately, family mediation. Instead, you chose prosecution, prison. Why? I looked directly at Patricia. She was staring at the table, couldn't meet my eyes. Because what she did wasn't a family dispute. It was a crime. She stole from a vulnerable elderly man, her own father, forged documents, manipulated doctors, threatened him into silence. That's not something you mediate. That's something you prosecute. The lawyer had no response. Sat down. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Came back with verdicts. Patricia Walker, guilty on all counts. Ryan Walker, guilty on all counts. Sentencing was scheduled for 8 weeks later. I didn't attend every pre-sentencing hearing, didn't need to, but I was there for the final one, May 14th. The judge reviewed everything, the evidence, the impact statements, the defendant's pleas for leniency. Patricia's lawyer argued she'd already suffered enough, lost her freedom, her reputation, her family. She's a first-time offender, a woman in her 60s. Sending her to prison for years serves no purpose. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, the defendant didn't just commit fraud, she tortured her father psychologically for years, made him doubt his own mind, stole his autonomy, his dignity, his peace in his final years. The length of her sentence should reflect the length of her cruelty. The judge looked at Patricia. Mrs. Walker, do you have anything to say? Patricia stood, hands shaking. I loved my father. Everything I did was to protect him, to help him. My daughter has twisted this into something it wasn't. I made mistakes, but I never meant harm. I hope someday she can forgive me. Still lying, still playing victim. The judge's face didn't change. Mrs. Walker, I've reviewed this case thoroughly. The evidence is overwhelming. You systematically exploited your father, forged his signature dozens of times, manipulated medical professionals, stole nearly $1 million. This wasn't love. This was greed. He paused. Patricia Walker, I sentence you to 9 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release. Full restitution ordered. Patricia's knees buckled. Her lawyer caught her. 9 years. She'd be 73 when released, if she was released. Ryan Walker, the judge continued, you enabled your mother's crimes, participated actively in the conspiracy, used your professional knowledge to hide stolen assets. I sentence you to 4 years in federal prison, followed by 2 years supervised release. Full restitution ordered. Ryan just nodded. Accepted it. He'd already lost everything else, his career, his marriage, his reputation. 4 years was just the official stamp. They were led away, back to custody. I walked out of that courtroom, into bright May sunshine, felt lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying something heavy, and finally set it down. Agent Morrison found me on the courthouse steps. How do you feel? Tired? Relieved? Sad? Sad? That it had to come to this, that greed destroyed my family. Your family destroyed itself. You just documented it. She handed me a business card. If you ever need anything, call me. What you did took courage. Not many people can stand up to family like that. My grandfather did it first. I just finished, but he started. 2 weeks later, I received a package from Harold's attorney, Lawrence Graham, the man who'd held Harold's will, kept his secrets. Inside was another letter and a key. The letter was short. My dearest Natalie, if you're reading this, then justice was served. Patricia and Ryan faced consequences for what they did. I'm at peace knowing you had the strength I lacked. The key is to a safe deposit box at First National Bank, box number 427. Inside is one more thing I want you to have. Not money, something more important. Your grandfather who loved you more than you'll ever know. Harold. I went to the bank the next day, box 427. The key turned smoothly. Inside was a small wooden box, carved cedar, beautiful craftsmanship. I opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to me, written over years. I opened the first one, dated 8 years ago, right when Patricia became her power of attorney. Dear Natalie, I'm starting this letter because I need to document what's happening, not just for legal purposes, but for you, so you understand. Patricia asked to manage my finances today, said she wanted to help. I said yes, but I'm going to watch carefully because I know my daughter, and I know when someone wants control. I opened another from 5 years ago. Dear Natalie, you visited today, brought me that mystery novel I mentioned. You stayed for 3 hours. We played chess. You didn't check your phone once, didn't mention money, didn't ask for anything, just spent time with your old grandpa. Do you know how rare that is? Patricia visits once a month, stays 20 minutes, always has an excuse to leave, always has a request before she goes. But you just come to be with me. That's why you're getting everything.